Tonight, we have something very exciting happening as I am introducing you to my very own TBR game. First, I want to preface this by saying this is an idea that I came up with from my own brain, and I'm sure that I'm not the first person to do this because there are millions of people out there doing videos with different things, and so I'm sure this is not a unique idea, but it is an original idea because, well, like I said, came from my own brain. So with that, there are so many people doing TBR games based off of different popular board games, and I personally haven't seen any done based on this game. So this is what I ended up doing. It's going to fall apart as soon as I pick it up. Perhaps it'll stay together. It's falling apart. It's fine. So mine is based off of the game of life. So as you may or may not be able to see, I have taken a marker and outlined the different spaces on here to mean different things. So I'm going to go through these things with you. The blue outline spaces are my good card spaces, which I will show you in a second. The red outline spaces are my bad card spaces, and the green outline spaces are the life tiles on here, which I'm using as fantasy card spaces. So again, I'll explain it in a second. So every month I'm going to do 5 spins, except for a couple of times where I might have to add an extra one. So here, there are these stop spaces in the game of life. Anytime I land on one of those, I have to randomize the books that have been on my TBR the longest and choose whether I'm going to read them or unhaul them. So if I read them, obviously that counts as one of my books. And if I choose to unhaul them, then that spin doesn't count and I have to spin 2 more times. So I'm basically adding just 1 spin to my total to discourage me from just not reading all of the books. And then here, you might say that like it's obvious to choose the career choice because then I get to the rest of the prompts sooner. But here on the career choice, it's all bad prompts, whereas here it's all good prompts. But I may not want to choose that because there's that stop sign there. And I may not want to read the oldest book on my TBR. So like, there's some choices that come into play. Here we are. The green payday spaces are just to add an extra spin to the end of my 5 spins that I'm already doing. And finally, these blue spaces are really great because they mean that I have the option to banish a book from my TBR with 0 consequences, which is really nice. So the idea of this game, first, is to have some fun, and second is because I am on a book buying ban until I get to the end here, where I will allow myself to spend $100 on books. And based on the spins that I have already done, I think it will take me about 2 to 3 months to get through this board. So that's not too bad at all. And that makes me very excited. So with that, let me show you the cards. This is my stack of good prompt cards. They're not really good prompts. They're just sort of generic prompts, I guess. And I created these myself using just blank playing cards. So you can see there, I mean, maybe you can't. There we go. You can see I created them myself. So up top we have the category of card, and then we have what the actual prompt is. So I created those myself. I'm very proud of these, and I'm excited to use them for this game. Next up I have the bad prompts, which will eventually look like these, but in red ink, but I just haven't gotten around to making them. So instead I have this old deck of cards where I didn't have my 52, and it was red, so I was like, red, bad, makes sense. So I just wrote the prompts on there. So I will be using those for my bad prompts for now. And finally, the one that I know you're all most curious about. Hi, cat. Oh, she's gonna come say hi. Oh, this is Peanut. She's my baby, and she doesn't like being snuggled. But she's saying hi. So the one that I know you're all most curious about are my fantasy cards. So I knew I wanted to incorporate these into a TBR game somehow, and this just felt so perfect. So these are from a game called Once Upon a Time, where it's a storytelling game, and they basically just have a bunch of prompts to put together a story. And I decided that these prompts would be really great to pick a book off of my TBR. So the back of them are really pretty, look like that. And the front of them looks something like this. And they all have some sort of word on them. So if you see, for example, there it goes. This one says lucky and then secret. So I would have to use that prompt as a way to figure out what I was going to do. And I can interpret it however I feel like I want to interpret it because it's my TBR game. So, and I guess the only last thing is if I don't read the books that are on here, for each book I don't read, I don't add an extra spin, but rather I go back 5 spaces. So it will take me longer to get to my book shopping trip. I did just want to say real quick that there are a couple of exceptions to my book buying, and those are for the book clubs that I'm in. So I have a book club with my 2 friends from college, and there's no telling what those books are going to be each month, so I can't say that I'll own them. So I will be possibly purchasing books for that. The other book clubs that I am allowing myself to purchase books for are for the book club that I run at my own school. Seeing as I am the teacher sponsor, if my kids pick a book to read that I have not read already, I want to read it with them, and I will be purchasing that book. And finally, there are 2 online book clubs that I will be allowing myself to purchase books for, and those are Middle Grade Monthly, hosted by J.D. Ray Reads, and How to Train Your Gavin. And the second one is Books and Lala's horror mystery book club that I can't remember. Literally Dead Book Club. I will be allowing myself to buy books for the Literally Dead Book Club as well. So those are my couple of exceptions. So if you see me hauling books, it's not because I broke my book buying ban, it's because they are for one of those book clubs. So with that, let's get into my TBR. So here's the board for my game of TBR. So as you can see, it's set up just like a normal Game of Life board. I'll be using the spinner to decide where I'm moving. I'm going to be doing 5 spins unless there is something that makes me do an extra spin. These are my good prompt cards, these are my bad prompt cards, and these are my fantasy cards. So, with the first spin. That is a 9. And I chose to take the career track because even though there's a higher chance of me getting a bad prompt, I really don't want to go to that stop sign. 9, which is a good prompt. Booktube picks. Read another Booktuber's TBR. So this card was Booktube picks, so read another Booktuber's TBR. So I don't need to read the entire TBR because that would be crazy. I just need to pick a book that I've seen on another Booktuber's TBR. So, as it is the Middle Grade Monthly book this month, I've seen so many of my favorite booktubers put this book on their TBR, and that is A Wolf for a Spell by Kara Sutton. I don't know much about this except that it is a middle grade polar fantasy featuring Russian folklore, I think, because I know that Baba Yaga is in this. And I don't know anything else except that I love this cover and it looks adorable and I'm very excited to read it. So, this is the first book on my February TBR. All right, roll number 2. That is a 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stop. So that means I need to randomize the books that have been on my TBR the longest and decide if I'm going to read it or unhaul it. Next up, I landed on a stop sign. Fun. So when I randomized my TBR, which I would show you, but I have not yet found a solution to filming with my phone and randomizing my TBR on my phone. So maybe one day I will. but today is not that day. But I did randomize the books that have been on my TBR the longest, and by TBR the longest, I'm counting that as books that I have owned since before I graduated high school. There are quite a few of those, and once I get through all of those or unhaul all of those, I'll expand that meaning to books that I've owned since before I graduated college. But for right now, I need to get rid of the books that I have owned since before I graduated from high school, which was 6 years ago now. So anyway, when I did that, I got Gates of Fire, an epic novel of the Battle of Thermopylae by Steven Pressfield. This used to belong to my dad, and when he moved, he gifted me his entire book collection. Recently, I was spending time with my uncle, and he asked me if I had ever read this, and I didn't even remember that I owned it. It has been on my TBR for so long. And he said that it is amazing. So I have heard of the Battle of Thermopylae. Do I remember much about it from history class? No, I do not. Would my boyfriend be pretty disappointed in me for not knowing anything about the Battle of Thermopylae? Probably. But maybe I can learn something from this book. And all of the reviews on it are very positive, but I am a little bit nervous because it is an adult historical fiction, which is something that I have not read a lot of historically, and I'm nervous it's going to be pretty dense and pretty slow going, and I have a lot on this TBR this month. Spin number 3. That's a 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Visit the in-laws, and that is a fantasy card. As you can see, because it's outlined in green. You can see that card. Interesting. Next, I pulled this card, which said tiny. So, tiny could mean so many different things. And it kind of excites me a little bit because I think I'm going to take this to mean like a short book. And I know that's not exactly fair. No, you know what? I'm not going to use this as a short book. Tiny. I'm going to use Frostheart by Jamie Littler. And my justification here, remember, I get to interpret this however I want because it's my game. So my justification here is that the main character on the cover here is a child, therefore he is tiny. And the illustration of him makes him look very small. So that is my justification. It's not strong, but it's fine because I needed to read this book this month. So this is Frostheart. It is another middle grade polar fantasy. All I know is that it's some sort of Arctic adventure, and I know everyone loves it. This is the UK edition because I couldn't stand to not get the UK edition when it's just so beautiful. So I guess I'll read the back to you so you know just as much as I do for what it's about. Far out in the coldest part of the monster-infested snow sea, Ash waits for his missing parents with only his grumpy Yeti guardian for company. But when an accident reveals that Ash has amazing magical powers, he's whisked aboard the Frostheart, an explorer sleigh with a daring crew who need help. Can they help Ash master his new powers and find his family? I like it. So I'm very excited to give this a read, and yeah, that's Frostheart. 3rd book on my TBR. Okay, spin number 4, which we know what it's gonna be, but here we go. 6, but it doesn't matter because there's a stop sign there. So I'm gonna go ahead and spin for my next book that's been on my TBR the longest, and I guess we shall see. Hey guys, editing Kirsten here. Excuse all this. I realized that I forgot to tell you what my second book was that I got for my second stop sign. I don't have it with me because I've actually already unhauled it, but that book was Titanic Survivor. I can't even remember who it's by, but the point is, I forgot to tell you. Now I've told you, and I will put an image of it right here. And the reason that I decided to unhaul it is just because I've had it for so long, and I don't think I'm really interested in reading that book anymore. So anyway, yeah, there we go. Bye. I already did the roll, so you guys already saw what it was, and I decided I'm going to unhaul it, which means that 4th spin did not count, and I need to add another spin on. So I have now done 3 spins, and I have 3 to go. So here we go. 3. 3, and it's another fantasy card. Interrupt, and it's kitchen. So I have to do something with kitchen, and I have an idea. My next card was kitchen, which you can see this is an interrupt card, and it is indeed an interruption in my TBR. This was not a good card for me to pull because there was only one book that I could think of that would work, and it was not originally on the books that I needed to get on this TBR. I also don't own a copy of this book, but I do own the ebook, so I will be reading the ebook, and that is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, and I will put the cover in right here for you. So, the reason this works for kitchen is because I know it has something to do with a young teenage mom who really likes to cook, who wants to go to culinary school or something along those lines. I just know it has to do with food. So yeah, that's gonna be it. Here we go, roll number 5. 8. Ooh, a bad prompt. I'm a little scared. Thinking about unhauling. To read a book that I'm thinking about unhauling. Okay, I'm also gonna cheat on this next one, but guys, like, I have so much I need to read this month, so please don't hate me for this. And like, I am still following the prompt, just not as it was written to be. It's fine. The next prompt was thinking about unhauling. So for that prompt, I'm going to be reading my copy of The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. And the reason this works for this prompt is because I have been thinking about unhauling this copy so I can get a nice copy with the dust jacket. And I might even want the anniversary edition with that nice gleaming gold, which is awesome. I'm back. Please excuse the costume change. My phone battery died, and then while my phone battery was charging, I had ended up changing into my pajamas and didn't want to change back to film, so it's fine. But as I was saying, I'm going to be reading The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas for this prompt. This is a reread for me. This is about a girl named Star who is coming home from a party with her friend who then gets pulled over by the cops, asked to come out of the car, and shot and killed. And this is about her community deals with the idea of a white cop killing a black teenager who was unarmed. And it's also about how she processes that, especially as she lives in this neighborhood but goes to school in a very white school. So she sort of has 2 different identities, which she's trying to come to terms with as she is dealing with the loss of her friend. So I love The Hate U Give, and I'm very excited to dive back into Star's universe this month. Okay, so that's 5. Let's go on with my final spin. 10. I am here for these long spins. I'm getting through this so quick. That's another fantasy. Kingdom. My next prompt was another fantasy prompt. There it goes. And that is Kingdom. So Kingdom is really easy with the types of books that I'm reading and the types of books that I am trying to get on my TBR this month. So for Kingdom, I will be reading A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. And of course, at this point, I still haven't read Asimov by Sarah J. Maas, but I will by the time February rolls around. So, this is the third book in her ACOTAR series, which is about Feyre, who's a human girl, but discovers that after she kills a wolf, that wolf was actually a Fae. And she gets taken into the Fae world in retribution for the lost life. And then things happen. This is an adult fantasy romance. It's often categorized as young adult. It is definitely not young adult. Let me tell you that. But I'm actually really struggling with this series. I really struggled with ACOTAR, and then the last 100 pages were great. And now I am about 200 pages into ACOMAF and still struggling, but I can see that it's starting to pick up the pace. So I am hopeful, and I'm very excited to jump in to book 3, hoping that maybe it'll keep its pace up once the pace rises in ACOMAF. So these are the 5 books that I will be reading, plus With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo for my TBR game. Now let's talk about the rest of my TBR. So also happening in February is J.D. Ray Reid's Polarthon, which I'm very excited about. I am on Team Penguin. Noot noot. And so there are 5 books that I will be reading for Polarthon. This is a readathon focused on polar fantasy that will take place in the first week of February. So while I'm going to add a bunch of books to my TBR for Polarthon, I will only be reading them in the first week. And if I don't get to them in the first week, unless they are one of these books, then I will not be worrying about continuing with them, as they are not going to have any consequences for not being read, since they were not on my TBR game. So let me go through the polar fantasy prompts with you that I have to fulfill. So the first prompt is folklore. So you've already seen this book, It's a Wolf for a Spell by Kara Sutton, that I will be reading to fulfill folklore. So I'm not going to summarize this for you guys again, but I will be reading this for that. The next prompt that I need to fulfill is something with foil on the cover. So for that, I will be reading Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I don't know if the regular copy has foil on the cover, but this is the Illumicrate edition, and you can see that the title is foiled, and also the yarn going through the spinner is also foiled. So this will be my book for that. This also has silver edges, which are gorgeous, but that's not the point. This is a retelling of the Rumpelstiltskin fairy tale, from what I can tell. The only thing I really know about Rumpelstiltskin is from what I've seen from him on the show Once Upon a Time, but he was my favorite character. I think he was really nuanced in that show, so I'm hoping I get some nuance in the character in this as well. Even though I'm not expecting it to be the same at all, I'm still hoping that I will get some really interesting insight into who Rumpelstiltskin is and that whole fairy tale. So that is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. Okay, the next prompt that I have to fulfill for Polarthon is an animal friend. So this is Northchild by Edith Pateau, and I have no idea what the animal friend is, although I would assume it's a polar bear. But I have just seen this on other people's TBRs for Animal Friend, so I'm hoping they know more than I do about Northchild. All I know is I was searching polar fantasy, and this cover really stuck out to me, and a lot of times with covers that look like this for me for middle grade, I don't know what it is, but the books have always worked for me in the past. But I do know it's middle grade, I know it's polar fantasy, and I'm very excited. I will read the back for you since I know nothing about it. Rose was born facing north, and the old stories say she will venture far from home and embark on a dangerous journey. Making a pact with an enormous white bear, Rose travels on his back to a mysterious castle that holds a dark enchantment, a darker temptation, and the key to her true destiny. So that did confirm for me that her animal friend is a polar bear, and this sounds really great, so I'm excited to read Northchild. And the fourth prompt for Polarthon that I will be fulfilling is an Arctic adventure, and I will be reading Frostheart by Jamie Littler for that. I already talked about this book earlier. It is on my Game of TBR, so no need to talk about it again. This will be fulfilling that prompt. And then, finally, is just a generic polar fantasy. So this is A Winter's Promise by Christelle DeBoss. I think that's how you say it. I saw JD Ray Reid's reading this a while ago, and I kept seeing the second and third book in my local Barnes & Noble and not the first one, just over and over and over. So when it came time for Polarthon, I thought it was time to bite the bullet and buy the first book because I am very, very excited about this. So I ordered this book online, and I am just excited to read it. So this is a young adult polar fantasy, and again, I don't know anything about this because I am predictable as fuck. But I will read a little bit of the inside flap for you, and we will discover what it's about together. A mix of awkward misfit and misunderstood genius, Ophelia cares little about appearances or other people's opinions of her. She possesses two special gifts, an unrivaled talent for reading the past of objects and the ability to travel through mirrors. Her peaceful, if somewhat dull existence on the Ark of Anima is interrupted when she is promised in marriage to Thorn, a taciturn and influential member of a powerful clan from a distant ark, the cold and icy pole. So, that's all I'm going to read, because I don't really want to know more, but you get where the polar bit comes in. She has magic powers, so there's the fantasy bit, hence polar fantasy. And it sounds like I'll be getting a little bit of romance, too, which is always a win. So there's my Polarthon 2021 TBR. Now let's go into the books that I need to read in February for my various book clubs and read-alongs. So first, you've already seen, I'm participating in the Thorns and Roses along, and in February we will be reading A Court of Wings and Ruin. So I'll be reading it for that club. I already talked about this book, so no need to talk about it again. Similarly, I'm participating in the Tog-along, and in February we are reading Throne of Glass, also by Sarah J. Maas. I think this one came before ACOTAR, because I think, yeah, this was written in 2012. ACOTAR was written in 2015. Because I think Throne of Glass was one of Sarah J. Maas's first books. But this is about Celaena Saratheon, who goes and competes to become the king's assassin. I have already read the first couple of books, and I'm very excited to dive back in. I'm currently in the middle of The Assassin's Blade, which is the prequel to Throne of Glass, and I am loving getting Celaena Saratheon again. I remember absolutely adoring her character, and so I'm excited to dive back into the world and actually finish the series this time. For my book clubs at school this month, there are two books that I will be reading, one that's young adult and one that's middle grade. So our young adult book for this month is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, which I've already talked about. And our middle grade book for this month is Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky by Kwame Mabalia. Gosh, I probably just butchered that. I'm so sorry. But this is a Rick Riordan's Presents about this young boy, Tristan Strong, who is going to spend some time with his grandparents in Alabama when he discovers that there are some Black American gods from Black American folklore that are actually real, and he discovers his connection to them. So it's very much a Percy Jackson-esque book, except celebrating Black American folklore rather than Greek mythology. So I am very excited to dive into this, as I loved the Percy Jackson series, and I'm excited to learn more about different cultures. Whew. Okay, getting there, guys. Wow, this is long. Okay, next up is I have the book for the Literally Dead Book Club in February. One of my goals for this year was to diversify my reading a little bit, and so I really want to use that book club to diversify myself in the fields of mystery, thriller, and horror. So this month they are reading When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. This is a book that I had purchased after seeing it as one of the Book of the Month books, but I didn't get the Book of the Month edition. I actually got it for on sale at my local Barnes & Noble instead. So this is, as far as I know, it's just a mystery that takes place in Brooklyn, but, sorry, it's a thriller, not a mystery, a thriller that takes place in Brooklyn. I'd really love to know what the difference is between mysteries, thrillers, and horrors. Like, I have a general idea in my head, but, like, I don't really know. So I would love some clarification there. If anyone knows, drop it in the comments. I don't know anything about this, and I kind of want to keep it that way because it's a thriller, and I feel like those are better when you're going in blind. But I will be reading this in the month of February. The last book that I absolutely must read in February, I am overwhelmed, is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. My best friend Miranda and I are going to be buddy reading these. We're going to be reading one book a month for the entirety of 2020. I have already read the first 3 books, but I spaced them out so much that I really would love a reread before diving into the 4th one. So I agreed to read them again with her, and she's never read them before. I love Outlander. I adore it with my whole heart. I love the TV show. I love the books that I've read. When I first read this, I was fresh out of college. No. When I first read this, I was fresh out of high school. And so you can see it's been a long time since I've read this book. And I think that now that I'm an adult, I will appreciate it more and love it even more. And I'm just so excited. So Outlander is about a woman named Claire who is on her honeymoon in Edinburgh, Scotland. When she is out exploring one of the stone circles that make up the Highlands of Scotland, she finds herself transported back to the 18th century where she meets the dashing young redhead, Jamie. And then adventures ensue. She finds herself having to deal with what is life in the 18th century and survive in the 18th century, as well as dealing with the fact that she doesn't know how she's ever going to see her husband again, or if she's ever going to see her husband again. So it's a beautiful story. I adore Outlander. I'm so excited to dive right back into this. Finally, I have a couple of books here that I would like to get to this month, but I have a feeling I won't, given how many books I have to read this month. So the first one is my first priority, which is Dear Evan Hansen. This was gifted to me by one of my amazing students because she knows how much... Wow, this is upside down. Huh. But this was gifted to me by one of my amazing students because she knows how much I absolutely adore reading and how much I absolutely adore musicals and plays and Broadway shows. So she gave me her copy, which you can see she annotated herself and put in where the songs in Dear Evan Hansen take place in the book. So this is such a sweet gift, and I just... it's so heartwarming, and I just want to get to this as soon as possible. So this is my number 1 priority, assuming I can get through all the books that I have to read. And I also want to show you guys. She also, there we go. She also made that for me, which is just so sweet. So I'm really hopeful that I will be able to get to Dear Evan Hansen this month. Finally, are a couple of Polarthon books. My aim for Polarthon is to read a book a day for the entire week. So I have my 5 books that I have to read in that week. And if I finish those, I have a couple options here. And if I don't get to them in that first week, then I will not be reading them at all this month because I have so many other books to focus on. I'm not going to be telling you guys anything about these books, rather just showing them because they're kind of only an unofficial part of my TBR. So the first one is Green Glass House by Kate Milford, In a Holidays by Christina Lauren, Conceal, Don't Feel by Jen Kalanita, Frostblood by Ellie Blake, and The Gathering Storm by Robin Bridges. Oh, okay, this is a big stack, guys. Let me see if I can even pick it up and show you. I need my chin to do this. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. There we go. Plus with a fire on high. So I'll be right back. I'm going to go add up how many pages this is. And I will let you know. I did include Dear Evan Hansen there. I did not include the 5 other Polarthon books because Dear Evan Hansen really is a priority and those other books are less so. So I'll be back. I'm going to go add these up. See y'all in a bit. Okay, I added it up. I have too much faith in myself. This added up to 5,942 pages, which, if you divide it by the 28 days that are in February, that is 213 pages a day. I know I won't be able to read 213 pages a day. So this is going to rely on some serious self-control over the weekends. The only thing that's making me like semi-hopeful is that 1, 2, 3, 4 of these are middle grade, and I can usually read middle grade at about twice the speed as a young adult or adult book, and I think it'll go, like, I think those ones will go pretty quickly, and 5 of these books will be read in the first week, hopefully. So I guess we'll see. I'll let you know. Let me know down below which of these books you would be most interested in reading yourself, and let me know if any of these books are on your own TBR for February. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please hit the like button if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more bookish content from me. Again, my name is Kirsten, and I like to read. Happy reading. I will see you guys next time. Bye!